Welcome to the channel. I'm Tony the Technician. Today we're going to be going into a few items that are some must-have tools, but not your everyday tools. So like if you're a weekend warrior DIYer that doesn't really do a whole lot of work, maybe you just do an oil change here, a brake job there, then you can probably get by without these. But if you're somebody, weekend warrior DIYer, that does a decent amount of work, or you're getting into the professional field, these are items that you should really consider because they're going to help out, cut down time, get you access to things a little bit easier than your standard tools that you see on an everyday basis. So I'll try to have all of these linked down in the description for you guys so they're easily found. But if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns on any of these items, please feel free to drop a comment down below. I'll do my best to answer that. And if you guys enjoy it, please make sure to smash that thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe. Let's go ahead and get into this. So here we're going to be going into 5, or technically 6, items that I think everyone should have in the shop or garage if you do a decent amount of work. If you're a weekend warrior DIYer that does quite a bit of work, these could be handy. These are going to be really useful in the professional field, whether you're just getting into it or maybe you've been into it a little while and you're looking for some of those tools that might speed up some of these processes just a little bit. A lot of these tools can be really handy. Some of them, even if you just do a little bit of work, are still extremely handy. If you're somebody that just does a brake job here, an oil change there, you can get by without a couple of these with cheaper options, but a couple of them are still handy even if you only do an oil change, a couple oil changes a year, a brake job a year, you know. But either way, all of these tools can be extremely handy just depending on how much work you do. So first up is going to be universal sockets. So if you buy any socket set out there, most likely what you're going to receive with that said socket set is going to be your universal joint. Really, really handy tool for those stupid, awkward positions that you find yourself in constantly. Some people will put rubber bands around here. I grew up with electrical tape around here to try and help keep its position depending on where I'm working, or over time when some of these get sloppy. Some of them are adjustable, most are not. Then there are spring-loaded ones out there also. I have one, I just can't find it, where you can angle it, but as soon as pressure is released, it returns to center, which is really nice. But this is most likely what a lot of people find themselves using, which is a fantastic tool. The only annoying thing is constantly, let's say you're working on something, you got an extension, this universal joint, a socket, and you're constantly having to swap out sockets or anything like that. These can just be really handy because you can go straight to your box, grab the size that you need, and go. I got a 1/4 inch set, I got 2 3/8 sets. This one's Matco, this one's gearwrench, this one's Astro Tools, and then I have a Matco set of impact rated, and then these are also 12 point. Now, this is one of them that if you're just doing an odd job here and there, you can easily get by with just a universal joint and said socket. No need to go out, because some of these can get quite expensive, especially impact rated good quality ones. You can find some cheaper ones now available. I can't attest to their quality or anything like that, but there are some cheaper ones available online now. And like this Astro Tools one, you can get the 1/4 inch set, I want to say for $28, somewhere around in there. So it's really not bad, but some of these 3/8 drive universal sockets can get really expensive, especially if you get them in mid-length or deep well, because that is the pro to this. Not only is this very affordable, but you can simply throw a shallow socket on there, or if you need, you got a deep well on a swivel. Whereas when you're working with something like this, you get what you get. You get a set of shallows. You get like, you get your standard, 8 through 19 millimeter, or 10 through 19 millimeter, just depending on what set you go with. But you either get them all in shallow, and then you'd have to buy mid-length if you want mid-length, or if you want deep well, you'd have to buy a whole nother set of deep well. So that's where these can get extremely expensive. But if you're constantly working on cars and you find yourself in those stupid situations trying to access things, these can be fantastic because you also don't have to worry about the socket coming off or anything coming undone. And a lot of these are adjustable, and then they have pinned and pinless versions of these. So basically what I'm getting at is if you can justify maybe a 1/4 inch set, it's good for the price, mid 20s, low 30s for this. When it comes to 3/8, you're probably looking at about $40 to $80, just depending on the size of set and the brand that you go with. Maybe there's some cheaper brands out there that you can find on Amazon that you can get a little bit cheaper set, especially if you're only going to be using them every once in a great while. Impact ones the same way. When I got these back in 2015, there weren't a whole lot of options out there. Now, just like everything else, there's a very wide range. But that is first up on the list, is just universal sockets over a universal joint with a socket. But these can still be extremely handy, being able to select the depth of socket that you want instead of having to purchase entire sets. Next up is actually another socket, that being shallow sockets or stubby sockets, extremely shallow sockets. These ones are from Capri. I have a full set of 3/8 drive, and it goes from 10 to 22, if I remember correctly. These are impact rated. They're extremely shallow and extremely, extremely helpful for working on certain suspension, like when I was working on my coilovers or when I was working on my steering box. There are certain situations where I couldn't get just a standard shallow socket in there. And here you can just kind of see the difference in between your standard shallow socket and your low profile stubby socket, how much room that saves you. But while these aren't going to be something that every weekend warrior and DIYer are going to need, these are another item that can really reduce time in working in those situations that aren't so much fun. Now, these Capri ones, I love them. They've been great, good quality. But I will say, like Astro Tools, they have the same stubby sockets, but on the bottom, like third of the socket, you're going to have a hex base. And that's going to allow you to use like a pliers wrench or a wrench on the back side of this, instead of where this design is strictly just a ratchet, where the Astro Tools one, you can use a few different options in order to get into those really tight spaces. So first up, universal sockets. Next up, stubby sockets. Next one is another socket. I have a full set of these, but if you do a lot of oil changes, these can be great. This is from Gearwrench. I do believe others sell them as well. But I've had this set for, I don't know, probably since 2017, around that time frame, and they've done very, very well. This has a design to be used with their pass-through ratchet, so you kind of got that proprietary design on the back, but it can just be used with your standard 3/8 ratchet. Then it has this anodized ring around here, and each size is going to have a different color coding. I think I have a 6 or 7 piece set, I can't remember exactly. It's got the part number, gear wrench, the size, and then the blue is the identifier for the 19 millimeter. And these are magnetic, so very nice. Sticks right to the drain plug. Then you break it loose with your ratchet, and then you can just use this knurling part to remove the drain plug, and then reinstalling it's nice as well. Even if it's oily, you got that knurling on there that helps you remove or install the drain plug. But once again, not a tool that's necessary, just one that's really handy. Another one that's fantastic is this guy here. So if anybody does their own work on their car or work in a shop, you guys probably know what this is. This is for those vehicles, which are a majority of them, where the engineers really did not care where they put things. Not just fasteners, but basically everything. And whether you're doing transmission, oil, diff, there are so many fluids that the drain plug is located in the dumbest possible place it could be, where sometimes you hardly have access to it, and then sometimes when you do have access to it, it's sitting right over a cross member or right over top of another component. And yeah, you can get the drain pan underneath there, but then you have oil dropping down onto all of these components, whether it's suspension or the K member or cross member. And then once it hits that, it spreads into like 8 different streams, and then it's going everywhere, and you're trying to catch it all, and it's just a mess. Not only
is it hard to keep it all in the drain pan. But then you have all of these components, and if you're a mechanic or a DIYer that cares about their stuff or their work, you have to go through and clean all that up. You don't want to leave all that oil just flying everywhere, but you want to make sure that you clean all of those components that got soaked in oil. And that's where this can really come in handy. This is called Formafunnel. I'm not sure if you can even read that. It's made in the USA. And it's basically a rubber compound with like a metal flexible liner of some sort. What kind is in here, but the rubber is basically molded around it. And you can basically just take this thing and basically angle it however you want. So like if your drain plug is up over top of a cross member, you can put that puppy right up on there, and then all the oil just simply drains down, doesn't get all over everything. Just a really handy tool, and I can't remember what I paid for this, but I do know it was very affordable. And even if you're a DIY or weekend warrior that only works on your own stuff, if you have a vehicle with a drain plug in a location like that, a simple product like this can save you a lot of time at the end of your oil change. So that is next up. Now, the next two I'm just going to quickly go over, and this is going to be geared more towards those that maybe you're in the process of rebuilding an engine, or maybe you do it fairly often. These are two things that you probably already have, or if you don't, something that you should consider. First up, if you work on any old engines where you still deal with a distributor, this is a fantastic tool. This is a oil priming tool. It is designed to be dropped down the distributor hole, and it has a keyway here for the oil pump. So you drop it, you drop the tool down, this lines up, and then you take your other aluminum piece, you drop it down on top. This kind of centers it in that top distributor hole, and then you attach the chuck of your drill to here, and this allows you to spin up the oil pump, priming the engine, getting oil up to the top of the valve covers or rockers. And that's very important because you never, especially if you're rebuilding a personal engine for your own vehicle, or any engine in general, you want to make sure that you're giving it its best possible life, and the first startup is going to be key to the life of that engine. And priming it is just one of many ways that is going to help. Hopefully, you've coated everything during assembly really well, but this is really going to help. Now, there are certain brands out there that don't seal real well, that a lot of people have issues trying to get oil everywhere, because honestly, it does take quite a bit. If you're not seeing oil pressure or oil coming out of those rockers or your push rods, then most likely they're plugged, and it's going to take a little bit of time for pressure to push that grease or whatever you may have used during assembly out of that orifice, and it's just going to take time. But some of them honestly do not seal well, and so you might get some oil out of a few here and there, but maybe you're not getting oil out of all of them. If that doesn't work, if you have an old distributor laying around and you can disassemble it, it's not something that you're going to use again, you can basically tear it down and attach a drill to the top of it. And usually distributors, since they live in that location, have a little bit better fitment than some of the priming tools, and that usually does the job. Not something that you necessarily want to go cheap on, and they do make they're designed differently for different engines. So like this one's for small block Chevys, but that is one. And then this one kind of goes along with this. If you've rebuilt an engine and now you've got some miles on it, something that you want to do during your first oil change is really inspect the drain plug, the oil that's coming out of there, and inspect the bottom of the oil pan if you can. If you have like an oscilloscope or borescope, inspect the bottom of the pan. But another thing is to cut open your oil filter, and that is where something like this comes into play. This is just a cheap one, and it just uses a little cutting wheel here, and you can get replacements. You can get a dozen of these little discs for a couple bucks. So it's just got some rollers on this side, some little roller bearings, on this side, and then you have your cutting wheel on this side. You simply drop your oil filter on here, and then you will tighten this. You will tighten this handle, rotate your oil filter, snug this up a little bit more, snug it up a little bit more, and go and continue to rotate your oil filter until it cuts through it, kind of like a can opener. So very simple tool, very nice tool. This one I want to say ran me $25. I'm not sure exactly, but once again, these two tools before first startup and then after your first oil change, these two tools can be absolutely amazing, both quite affordable. So those are 6 items that I think a lot of people should consider if you're getting into doing a decent amount of work, or if you're planning on or already do engine rebuilds or getting into engine rebuilds, especially if, you know, they're older engines. That's what I primarily work on now, is just older stuff. That's why this tool did for me. But this one is going to be great all around, whether you're working on more modern stuff or classic stuff. So that is it for today. I will try to have as many of these products linked down in the description for you guys. And if you guys enjoyed, please make sure to smash that thumbs up. Leave a comment down below of your guys' thoughts, or if you would like to see another video like this. And as always, if you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.